What's up, y'all? New video. Full frontal though. I did record another video earlier today, but I did delete it because it was very unorganized, right? It was about Kamen Rider, and specifically Heisei Kamen Rider, early Heisei, and why I think everything from Kuga to Blade is special, but also focusing on the fact that I really don't like how people are really elitist in this fandom when it comes to that era of Kamen Rider, and how we should like what we like and try to focus on that instead of spreading hate about what we don't like, right? But I saw a series of tweets that had me thinking about something that's really important to me, and I thought I should change the topic of today's video because this is more important to me, and I feel like I can be more coherent and less rambly than about the other one. The other one ended up being almost 50 minutes. But filler. What's wrong with filler? What is filler? Rather, I should ask. Because people have very different definitions of it, and my definition of filler really depends on the medium I'm talking about being an adaptation of something else. Like for example, Bleach. Bleach is one of my favorite anime and manga, but I read the manga first before watching the anime. I didn't watch the whole anime though. I only watched Thousand Year Blood War because when I finished the manga, it was like I finished the manga in 2020. Yeah, in 2020, late 2020. And then the next year was when the first season of Thousand Year Blood War was going to come out. So I waited, right? I didn't actually watch the anime because I knew I had filler. And that's the word, filler. In my opinion, I think filler is just stuff that wasn't in the original that's made to pad out time while the manga gets ahead, so the anime doesn't, catch up, right? A lot of different anime have a different approach. Bleach specifically was forced to do this because of the weekly format. Other big examples, notable examples, I should say: One Piece, Naruto, Sailor Moon, and Black Clover, right? But there's more examples of anime that is in a different way, most notably seasonal anime. Like for example, Attack on Titan. People that have been here for a while, actually let's not say a while, let's say 10 years, right? You guys remember the wait between seasons 1 and 2 of Attack on Titan. If I remember correctly, season 1 ended in 2014, season 2 started in either 17 or 18. Which in retrospect isn't that much of a wait, but in real time it felt huge. Like Attack on Titan season 1 was damn near mainstream, right? They were talking about it in live action TV, like I'm so brain rotted. They were talking about it on TV, and it was part of everyday conversation, right? Relatively compared to other anime, right? But then when season 2 dropped, it didn't drop off the map, but only anime fans were talking about it instead of just everyone in general, right? The conversation kind of started back up when people started talking about Attack on Titan ending, but in between that, it wasn't nearly as popular as season 1 was. Which is a shame because I'd say season 1, at least that stretch of the story, is probably my least favorite part of the Attack on Titan story in general. Like, sure, it has a very special place in my heart because it was my first anime, and I love it. But I don't think it holds up as well as the rest of it. It's more entertaining. Well, it's more entertaining than a lot of other parts, but from a writing perspective, I don't think it holds up. But other people don't think that same way about filler. There's a lot of people on Twitter that have this perception, not on Twitter, online, that have this perception that filler is when the events of the plot aren't actively being advanced. And for me, that's a very flawed way to view it, isn't it? Because it relegates a bunch of other whole genres and styles of stories to just being filler because they're not focusing on an overarching plot. Like episodic shows, right? What's wrong with that? Slice of life. dramas, like usually it's more about the characters, right? Instead of about the plot. Like there is a plot, but usually we'll just have breaks from it to actually focus on what the fuck the characters are doing and how it's affecting them mentally. Let's take, for example, the obvious example, right? Comedy shows, slice of life comedies. Do you think all of it is filler? Because you look at episode 1 of Nichijou and then skip directly to the last episode, you're not going to be too lost. I mean, there's a couple characters that you won't recognize probably, because where was the whole cast? I don't think Sakamoto was introduced until like a couple episodes after, but again, besides the point, you're not going to be lost, right? You can skip to any episode of Nichijou having not seen any of it and just get what's going on. It's a comedy, right? Likewise, with other episodic stuff, like one of the biggest anime, Cowboy Bebop. Like everyone always says that Cowboy Bebop's amazing, like it's one of the best shows, but it's, for most of it, it's pretty episodic. The only real plot lines that are followed, Faye's story, Spike's story, and vaguely Jet's story, but it's not really focused on too much. And even so, those storylines are really only really touched upon in their focus episodes. For the rest of it, they're just there, right? They're just living, they're being themselves, and they're just going on little episodic adventures. But no one ever complains about filler in Cowboy Bebop, at least not like at least the conversation isn't focused on it when it comes to this show. So what's the difference, right? I feel like the difference is audience, because the tweets that or the conversations that really sparked this thought in me, or rather my interest in making this the video, is Toku Twitter, right? A lot of Kamen Rider fans have been complaining about filler or talking about filler, and I'm like, you gotta imagine, are these people more so fans of modern Kamen Rider? Because they would not be able to handle a show as serious. Like, people who complain about filler would not be able to watch Stronger at all. No Amazon, no Stronger, no Ichigo, no V3, no nothing, right? Because yeah, there's a plot, but it's mostly just episodic shenanigans. You know what fanbase doesn't complain about filler, at least as much? Ultraman. You don't see Ultraman fans complaining about this, at least not as much as Kamen Rider fans. Why is that? It's because Ultraman is not inherently, but it's a lot more episodic in nature. Hell, my example, Ultra 7, it's almost exclusively an episodic series. Like, I barely see any mentions of previous events in any episode. Because, that's the charm, right? You go on little adventures. But then I can see the complaints when it's a more plot-focused, more plot-driven series. Like, for example, Code Geass, one of my favorite anime of all time. A lot of people complain about the school life bits. And while I do think that episodes like the cat chase and the pizza thing are not really too necessary to exist, I do think they are necessary as they are. Because they do give us not only a moment of respite from the plot, but they also give us just a moment to see the characters being themselves. So, like, for example, the cat chase episode is, Lelouch and Suzaku just kind of reuniting and re-sparking their friendship after not having seen each other for the longest time, right? And establishing their new, dynamic in the school. And having everyone else just kind of accept them and as a duo, as friends, and seeing them work together. And it's also just cool shenanigans, like seeing Lelouch try to hide his identity because the cat stole the mask, and in the pizza episode, just him trying to handle a bunch of stuff at once, trying to hide Cece, or is it C2? I don't know. I think that's cool, because you get endeared to the characters, get connected to them. I don't think that's filler, because if you don't have any of these character building moments, you don't really get attached to these characters, you don't give a fuck, you don't really have any frame of reference as to how they feel normally to be able to understand how things change for them when the plot gets more heavy. On a show that really suffers from this is Jujutsu Kaisen. I talk about this on Twitter all the time. I feel like Jujutsu Kaisen doesn't have enough emphasis on characters as much as it should. And that's why I don't really care about any of its characters. That's why I don't really feel any emotional weight to it. That's why I don't really care about Jujutsu Kaisen, about its characters. That's why I'm not really too invested, right? It's more about the events. Like, spoilers for Jujutsu Kaisen. Skip to whatever timestamp is right here if you don't want to hear about the latest couple of chapters. But Sukuna died. And as far as we know, he was just a bad guy. A guy that was bad. We don't know why. We don't know what circumstance led to this. We just know that he was a bad dude. And you know what? Same goes for Kenjaku, the two biggest villains in the entire fucking show. Why would we care about them as villains other than them being a physical threat? Right? It's the same issue that Araki dealt with, that Hirohiko Araki dealt with when he was talking about, when he was writing Cool Shock BT. He talked about this in his manga and theory book, where most of the villains in Cool Shock BT were physical threats, and BT was a thinker, right? And he would cleverly find ways to deal with them and get out of the pickle, right? But then readers were kind of bored of this, and then his final villain was another scrawny guy, or he was another thinker, right? The final villain was someone that was a mental danger, someone that was smarter. He was also coming up with plans and schemes, and they had a mental battle instead of a physical one. And Araki noted that his readers were a lot more interested in that and reacted to that a lot more positively, because there's more there than just a physical threat. I believe that that's something that's a lot more connected to us really caring about the mental struggle, right? Because you think about these, you connect to the characters, and you care more if you know what's going on, if you can put yourself into place and think about it yourself and feel like you're solving the puzzle, or if you can connect to the characters emotionally and feel what they feel, or think you feel what they feel, and kind of care about them as people in a way, right? Like, that's why you end up crying. That's why we cry. That's why we cried at the end of Clannad, right? Clannad After Story. That's why we cried at the end of Orange, right? Or Code Geass, an example earlier, right? Because we care about these characters, about what they've been through, what they're going through, how they've changed. Then so what if the plot kind of pauses for a moment to focus on something else, just to show the characters being themselves before they go through a dramatic change, so that you as the audience can really realize, oh fuck, they've changed. I miss this. I miss what we had before. I feel empty. I feel like something's been lost. After a plot event, that's when you really feel an impact as an audience. One of my favorite examples, Berserk. One of my favorite arcs in Berserk, and also one of the most popular ones, is the Lost Children arc. Is it Lost Children? I think it is. I forgot the name. But you know, it's the arc when he goes into the little village. He fights the fairy girl. It's right after the Golden Age, but it's still Guts in his Black Swordsman era. And I think that's not only a really good way to reframe the story to the audience after the Golden Age, because the Golden Age is a massive arc that could kind of make you forget the mental space that Guts is in during his time as the Black Swordsman, how really negative his life is, and how much everything fucking sucks for him, right? It reframes everything. It puts you back in the same saddle that the first arc put you in, right after the Golden Age, so you have all the context, but go right back to it before the plot starts moving again into the Conviction arc. And you know, that's when you get things start moving. The world starts expanding. You get into more of the magic and mythological aspects of this world. I don't think that's filler. For me, you know, there's a purpose here. as a writer, why you put these things here. So that's why I don't think it's filler. Going back to Kamen Rider Kuga. The people that complain about filler think Kuga is mostly filler. Because Kuga is pretty episodic. It's not as episodic as Showa stuff, but it is pretty episodic. It does have a lot of the Showa blood in it, being, you know, the first post-Showa season. Well, not post-Showa era, post-Showa writer, you know. But Kuga does a lot of episodic Monster of the Week stuff, even though it also has its character drama that does carry on over time. Like, for example, that one scientist that's also a mother, and she's trying to reconnect with her child that she doesn't get to see much because of her job. That's a storyline that's ongoing, right? The whole thing of society slowly warming up to Yongo, to ULF number 4, you know, Kuga, when they see him, you know, saving people. That's another ongoing storyline. But other than that, it's very, very episodic. So you could argue it. So these people, would they think it's filler or not filler, right? I don't think it's filler, because there's always a purpose. You get to meet get to meet Godai, right? You get to meet Ichijo. You get to meet all their friends, right? See their stories, their characters develop. See them change as people. See them go on to their journeys, right? For me, the biggest example of this is Durarara. Durarara, and I'll say this example for later. Durarara, its plot is its characters, right? Without them and their interactions with each other and their clashes of personality and ideology, there is no Durarara. There is no plot. There's no events. There's no nothing. Because it's just a city existing and they drive it. So, what's filler there? Is it filler when Henri and Erika go to the hospital to meet up with Dorachin, and then they see Izaya there, and he just talks to them for a while to taunt Henri? Is that filler? No, because it's building Izaya's relationship with Henri, his manipulation of the whole situation, and then also building the friendship between Erika and Henri, because she tries to comfort Henri and tell her, like, you know, Izaya fucking sucks, don't listen to him, right? Again, also establishing the fact that Erika knows and is familiar with Izaya because of his dealings, right? That's not filler. Not at all, I'd argue. Is it filler to see Celti and Shinra? Is it filler to see them just hanging out in their apartment? No, it's character building. Because he's part of the glue that holds the whole thing together. He's the underworld doctor that everyone goes to when they're fucked, because they can't go to the police, they can't go to the hospital, right? Especially the ones that are in actual art, like outfits like the Awakusukai or Shizuo. They can't go to anyone else. They gotta go to Shinra. That's why he's there. And then he's connected to Celti, the headless rider. Everything connects there, right? Another example. Haruhi Suzumiya. It's a slice of life. Again, like Nichijou, not exactly too much on the comedy side, as much, or rather, relative to Nichijou. This show is just about the characters, entirely about the characters. There is an ongoing plot, but it doesn't really come into effect until later on, right? Full disclosure, I've only seen season 1, season 2, and the movie, and obviously Disappearance of Yuki Nagato. I did start to read the novels. I think I read the Dissociation of Haruhi Suzumiya and the Indignation of Haruhi Suzumiya, I think. And then The Surprise is the second part, I think, of Indignation. And this, in the novels, after what the anime covers, is when we get more of an ongoing thing, as far as I've heard, with other Esper organizations, whether they're alien organizations or for time travelers and that kind of stuff. You get more rivalries, you get more of an ongoing thing, but in the anime you don't really have that. You just have them going through the things and just getting to know each other, going on little adventures, because you know that's what Haruhi demands, right? And I love it. Why else do you think it's one of the most popular anime of all time? Why do you think it's a cult classic, I should say? Because nowadays, a lot of new anime fans don't know what the fuck Haruhi is, unfortunately. But that I don't think that's filler. Hell, going back to Jujutsu Kaisen example, one of the most popular recent Shonen Jump manga, Ruby Dragon. The plot is just about Ruby herself learning how to deal with her body. It's a puberty allegory with the whole dragon gimmick. I don't think that's filler. Even when she's just talking to her friends and they don't touch upon the topic of being a dragon at all. As a writer, you put these things in with a purpose, to get to know these characters, to get to establish a dynamic, to give the audience new information without telling them that. Like having two characters that I've never met before, like being like, oh yeah, that one, don't worry about him. You establish a past, right? Without saying, oh, I know this person because in the past X, Y, Z, right? No, as a writer, you have this because you want to give the audience information without making them feel like they're being told something. They're picking up on it, right? In a plot-focused series, sometimes you would want to slow down for a minute, get to know these people, like really understanding what their situation is like before things change, so that you feel the change as an audience, so that you care about it, and that you can so that you can compare the different situations and actually like understand what's going on better, without forgetting or without like losing that context. It's well ingrained into your head, right? In Jujutsu Kaisen, like, yeah, there is a big loss of the status quo. Their lives were entirely upended, ignoring the fact that it kind of goes back to normal at the end. But you don't really feel it that much, because after season 1, the only times Kugisaki, Itadori, and Megumi interact are a tiny little moment with Gojo after his flashback. Tiny little moment, right? And then, spoilers, latest chapter. But I digress. Actually, I think leaks should come out tonight, because tonight's Wednesday. But again, I digress. I say this a lot, sorry. But right, like, I don't think any of this is filler. But even if it was, why is that bad? That's something I want to get to. Why is filler bad? Like, if you care about these characters, why would you not just want to see them hang out? Why do you think fan works are so popular, where it's just a coffee shop at you? Or it's just characters interacting, fan fiction where it's like a random ship? Or it's just characters going on little adventures? Why do you think there's so many spin-offs that are just episodic? Like MHA, where there's a whole spin-off where they just going on daily little team-up missions, right? Ruby Chibi, it's like it's comedic. Yes, part of the appeal is the comedy, but full disclosure, I've only seen season 1 and 2. When season 3 aired, I was kind of dropping off of Ruby Chibi. But why the fuck do you think that people were clamoring, oh, I want to see Raven in Ruby Chibi, I want to see Cinder in Ruby, actually she was there from the beginning, I want to see Neo in Ruby Chibi, I want to see Sun and Tai and Crow in Ruby Chibi, right? People wanted this not because of the skits they could have, it's just to see them interact with other characters on a casual basis. Like, that's cool, right? I'll shit on the Sailor Moon 90s anime all day, because as you guys know, like, I'm a massive fan of the manga, and the 90s anime does not adapt it at all and even changes a lot of the characters. But the one thing I actually appreciate about it a lot, and why I actually managed to swallow so many episodes that I did, was because it just gave me a chance to see the girls just hanging out, right? In the manga they do, but the manga is probably one of the fastest paced manga I've ever read, even more so than Dawn and Chainsaw Man. It's 60 fucking chapters, only 60 chapters, the whole Sailor Moon manga. So yes, they do get time to interact and hang out, but it's pretty limited compared to just having to push through everything at a breakneck pace. I'd still praise it more than Jujutsu Kaisen, because Jujutsu Kaisen gives characters a lot less time to interact than Sailor Moon does. But in the anime, I do appreciate that we just get time for the characters to just breathe and be themselves, show their personalities, interact with different people in different ways. And as an audience, you get endeared to them, you start caring, so that when they're sad, when they're hurt, when they die, You actually care. You feel something. It's like, oh my god, fuck. And I don't just mean relating to them. I mean just caring, right? Because I guess I do care when I relate to a character, but even characters I don't relate to, I still care about them, right? Like, let me give you an example. An example from a series I don't like, Jujutsu Kaisen, right? I actually cried in one season of Jujutsu Kaisen. I don't like Miwa. I don't like Mekamaru. But then, when I saw Miwa coming to terms with Mekamaru's death, it was such an uncharacteristically slow, simple, personal moment. It was just them in an enclosed, in the seats of a train, right? They were just having a little moment, just talking one last time. It was just them, the two of them, all alone. And something about that intimacy, of that final conversation, that candidness, it got to me, right? Another one. I relate to Tomoya from Clannad. I don't exactly relate to Ushio too much. But I don't relate to Tomoya as a dad. I do relate to him more at the start, at the first half of After Story. But in that moment when he embraced Ushio, when he hugged her in the cornfield, not cornfield, in the field of hay, or in the field of grass, I don't know. You guys know what I'm talking about. That scene, I was inconsolable. Even though I couldn't relate to any of those characters in that specific situation, I felt it so hard, and that's because all of Clannad was just getting to know them and starting and caring about them, right? Ushio, you don't get to know her as much as Tomoya, but still you feel her sadness, her need to connect to her father because of how lonely she is, right? When she says that Sanai tells her she can only cry in the bathroom or when she's in her dad's arms, and then she asks if she can cry, like, that gets to me, man. It's fuck, I'm like choking up just talking about it. But then, when Jujutsu Kaisen, spoilers for the manga, timestamp here. Sorry about that. When Gojo dies, I'm like, okay. Woohoo! I don't care. I don't give a fuck. When Sukuna dies, I don't give a fuck. Right? Yuta's not dead, but even when I thought he was, I was like, okay. So what? And to give context, like those that know me on Twitter, Gojo and Yuta are two of my favorite fucking characters in the entire fucking show. And the only other one that's also in my top 3 is Geto, and he's been dead for a fucking while. And I don't give a fuck. I give more of a fuck about Mekamaru dying. And you think I can tell you what his real name is? I can't fucking tell you what his name is. I just know Mekamaru. But I cared more. Because the Momo was treated more respectfully. And you got a moment to really... The author breathed life into these characters. And... that's not filler. Jujutsu Kaisen needs more filler, I'd argue. So what's wrong with filler? What is filler? Is it filler when the plot entirely fucking slows down to have the characters celebrate a birthday party like in Blue Exorcist Season 1? Is that filler? I don't think it is. I thought it was when I first watched it, but in retrospect, it's character building. You see these characters become friends and care about each other. Hell, in RWBY, you could argue that the first 3 volumes are kind of filler-ish, but I'd argue they're not filler enough. Because, like, RWBY goes insane when Pyrrha dies, but how many conversations did she have with Pyrrha? She had a couple in volume 3, but they weren't one-on-one. They were with both teams present. How many times did RWBY talk to Pyrrha one-on-one for her to be that sad about Pyrrha rather than Penny? Fuck. In volume 8, where John had to kill Penny, did John ever talk to Did they share any words to each other? I don't think so. But RWBY is one of the shows that spends the longest time having characters talk to each other, but the cast is so large that they need more. Fuck, RWBY barely ever talks to Blake, her own team member. Like, how many times has Weiss talked to Yang outside of Volume 5? Like in Raven's camp, and then that one conversation they had with each other in the Oz house. How many times have they had a one-on-one? I think the conversation between Yang and Ren in Volume 7, that might have been the first time they ever talked to each other one-on-one. Has Blake ever talked to Nora? I don't remember that. I think I would rather have more filler just to have these characters interact. But again, let me restate this. This is just my opinion. Because I care more about characters than I care about plot. You might be more interested in the plot than I am. And just not really care about who the characters are as long as the plot is interesting. But I don't care what the plot is as long as the characters are interesting. That's why I hated One Piece, frankly. I read over 120 chapters because my friends just kept on telling me, like, just 50 more, just 50 more, just 50 more. My cousin, every time I go back to Puerto Rico, and he's telling me, like, you still haven't finished One Piece? Come on. But I just can't get into it because I don't care about any of the characters. I like Nami because the way she bantered and argued with everyone was the most fun part of the East Blue saga. But then after Arlong Park, she kind of mellows down, and it's kind of like, where's the spunk? Where's the fire? Why aren't you fucking calling everyone out on their bullshit? Like, where's the Nami I love, bro? Like, why aren't you being as, like, you know, fun? I don't care about Zoro. Hell, when Zoro lost that battle against Mihawk, they said, I'll never lose again. I didn't realize that was supposed to be a very important moment. Because Mihawk came out of nowhere. That battle was just kind of came out of nowhere and was over with really fast. So I was like, they didn't have much build up. Like, it just happened. I didn't realize until later that was probably one of his biggest character defining moments, and it just kind of happened. I barely even remember it. I remember it more in the live action, because then I had the prior context. I'd read One Piece before. But yeah, if I don't care about the characters, I don't care about your show. That's why I don't like stuff like Sword Art Online. I don't give a fuck about Kirito. I don't give a fuck about Asuna. Klein, freaking Lisbeth. I'm forgetting the name. Sorry. Sinon. I don't give a fuck. Right. That's why I don't care about SAO other than its other myriad problems. But you know. MHA. Another one. I don't really care about the characters. I wish I could, but I don't. But you know what would fix that? Filler. That's why, like, I don't really have a problem with filler. There's a couple things where I would complain about. Okay, why do this? But I usually do this when it's a plot point that's introduced, and then just do nothing with it. Big example being Jujutsu Kaisen, the merger, Kenjaku, Sukuna, the Heian era, everything. But you know what? Let's not talk about it here. I'll talk about it later if the next chapter is a shit show. You'll hear about me tomorrow if it is. But to close everything out, I don't think there's a problem with filler. Not at all. The definition is nebulous, and the definition that is most prevalent in conversations nowadays, especially on Twitter. I actually like that kind of filler a lot, actually, and I wish more series would have more of this filler. And Kamen Rider fans, Sentai fans, you guys should embrace filler, really. Because personally, I would rather have another season like Kuga, where the entire thing is like 70% character focus, and then 10% fights, and then 20% of it is a plot that keeps on building. I'd much rather have that. But at the end of the day, it's just my opinion. And as a better YouTuber says, your opinion matters more than mine. If you're watching this, sorry for swiping your catchphrase for a second there, sorry, dude. But thank you for watching another long video. If you're still here, I appreciate you listening to my ramblings a lot. I hope I'm getting better at editing. I'll get better for you guys. Let me know if there's anything you disagree with or you want to talk to me about, because I want this to be a conversation, and it's not just me yelling into my phone on top of a little stand in front of my desk that is very unorganized outside of what you can see, with my messy ass room just barely framed outside of the camera view. And if you're still here, got one last thing to say. Thank you for watching. See you next time.